Okay, welcome back to the Movie Well Marathon. I'm Andrew.
I'm Mac.
Heck yeah, and kind of somewhat happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what this
If
is
we get
for.
our scheduling right for once.
Well, I mean, this will be the end of February, so we definitely missed Valentine's Day, but this is our Valentine's Day themed buffer between our last two big, heavier, more gross,
Mhm.
graphic marathons. We were doing The Princess Bride, directed by Rob Reiner, came out in
Mhm.
1987. Starring, let me
Mhm.
get a good list of names here. Kari Elwes as Wesley, Robin Wright as Buttercup, Billy Crystal as Miracle Max, Mandy Patinkin as Inigo Montoya,
Again.
Wallace Shawn as Vicini, Chris Sanderson as Prince Humperdinck, Fred Savage as the grandson. He doesn't even get a name. Christopher,
It doesn't.
yeah, Christopher Guest as
The names
Count
are kids.
Rugen, Andre the Giant as Fezzik, and Carol Kane as Valerie. I was gonna go through all of them because these characters are classics. So,
Yes. Yeah.
yes,
The cast is amazing.
here we are, the Princess Bride. What's there to say? I mean, we're gonna have to do a quick disclaimer, just real quick. This is not a movie to shit on. I have some fun
No.
nitpicks, I have some genuine nitpicks, but it's not that kind of movie. It just isn't.
It's so fun. I don't know how they did it. Like there is genuine magic in this film because the whole thing is great and it feels like it doesn't feel like it's anything crazy or fancy. And
Mm-mm.
yet, as you're going through, you're just genuinely enjoying yourself the whole time.
Mm-hmm. It is an absolutely fun ride. I've probably seen this movie, no kidding, 100 times. Just because if it was on TV as a kid, we had it on.
Hmm.
It has fantastic rewatchability in my opinion. It
It
is
does. Oh yeah, I think the first time you watch it is never the best time. I mean, you got to watch it the first time to get the first time through. But it's not until like the third rewatch where you start like getting Princess
mm-hmm.
Bride. I mean, I'm sure you could enjoy it on your first and second
Sure,
watches,
sure.
but it's there's so many little things that'll just slip by you super
Mm-hmm.
fast if you're not sort of like following the rhythm of the story.
Yes, and especially if you're a child that doesn't yet have
Mhm.
the paying attention powers of an
Mhm.
adult, you might be like 6 years old and watch this and not realize that the Dread Pirate Roberts is Wesley, and
Mhm.
not realize the significance of As You Wish. And then when Buttercup pushes him down the hill, be really confused as to why she jumps down after him, and then really super confused when they're now friends because you didn't recognize Wesley right away because he grew a mustache and
Right.
has a ponytail. And it takes a couple of watches to realize all those things because you're a stupid child.
No, I this is definitely one of those films my parents turned on and just kind of like had in the background. So I saw like I don't know that I ever really sat down and had a sequential from the beginning to the end first watch of this film.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that like is just it colors part of the background in my childhood memories. Like it's just always there. There was one
Mm-hmm.
time we were on family vacation and for various reasons we weren't able to all sit down together, but we had put on Princess Bride. And once we finished Princess Bride, we just started it again because the same people who were in the room at that point weren't the people who had started the film.
Right
And so we
on,
just
right on. That's the way to do it.
they wanted to see all of it. And so, it's a great it's a big part of childhood. And there's a lot of things that you don't get as a kid, like the jokes about, um, being a great traditional line of work to start wars,
Mm-hmm.
or, even all of the Vicini jokes with this vocabulary, inconceivable,
Yeah.
you know, it there's a lot that goes down in the small moments of
Mm-hmm.
this film. And if you're not following closely and well, then there's always stuff for you to discover the next time you watch it.
Yes.
I too did not realize that the Man in Black was Wesley. I in fact did not realize the Man in Black was supposed to be the Dread Pirate Roberts for a
Oh
long
yeah, I
time.
didn't.
I
I
just thought he
didn't.
was the Man in Black.
I didn't realize that ever. Like it took just paying attention to the conversation later in the fire swamp to realize everything. Like I wasn't there. I found it somehow as a child a genuinely fun, entertaining adventure, and just
Mhm.
did not understand what was happening, but had fun with
True.
it. I just had fun with
It's
it.
like as a child, I was watching it, and if you had asked me what was going on, I really couldn't tell you, but I was having the time of my life watching it.
Mm-hmm. It's got that weird pacing where it's like it's just perfect enough for like kids to kind of sit there and enjoy it, but it's also entertaining for adults. Like it's not slow, it's not too fast. I don't think it's just fast and just slow enough, and it also moves from place to place
Yeah.
fast enough that it's entertaining. Like
Uh-huh.
you don't get bored.
It's almost like segmented, where
Yes,
like
like
this
chapters of
is
a
happening.
book.
Yeah, and then the next part is happening, and then the next part is happening. But there's all like little mini rises and falls in each of those moments. I think a great example of this is when Wesley is chasing them down. Like there's the cliffs of insanity, and then there's the
Mm-hmm.
sword fight, and there's the fight with Fezzik, and then there's the battle of wits. And then it comes in units where there's small rises in tension, and then a release, and you're on to the next thing. It's really good, actually, now
Mm-hmm.
that I think about it like that.
Yeah,
Mm.
I there's a lot of good to say. I think the sword
Mhm.
fight, of course, classic. I think it's fantastic. It's really fun. It's really cute. I love it's one of my favorite parts. Honestly, is Wesley and Montoya's like interaction, like the very first one, where like we're about to kill each other, but like not until you're ready. And while you're waiting,
Mhm.
let's have just this really interesting conversation because of how cool and respectful we are. Like it's
Yeah.
so cool and so fun.
I mean, talk about establishing character, right? We have no idea who the man in black is at this point,
Mm.
narratively. And we are only just getting introduced to our sort of like band of rogues here. We've already kind of figured out that Fezzik's a jerk, and not Fezzik, Vicini's a jerk, and Fezzik is sort of like a little bit maybe like portrayed as simple, and Inigo is being all kind and friendly. So we got a little bit of the dynamic going on there. Um, but we haven't really established anybody's reasons for doing this other than maybe the money that it brings in.
Mm.
And so when Inigo throws the rope over and he's like, I swear on the grave of my father, I believe he says. And Wesley's like, believe that.
Yeah.
Even though they just had a conversation about the fact that they're going to try and kill each other in about 30 seconds. And then he comes up, and not only does he allow Wesley to like catch his breath, he then hands Wesley his
I
sword
know.
to
I thought about
attack.
that too. It's like, whoa,
Like,
now, dude,
yeah,
the
yeah.
trust here.
Uh-huh,
Uh
uh-huh.
huh. Uh huh.
So it very quickly establishes both of them as oddly men of honor. Like
Mm-hmm.
they both are going to agree to a set of rules, follow that set of rules, and not try to kill someone in cold blood, even though arguably we've seen heroic characters take advantage of moments like that, and we praise
Mm-hmm.
them for their cleverness. In this moment, we're like, this means that both these characters are similar to each other and yet on opposite sides of the conflict, and they're honoring the fact that they don't want to cheat or stab someone in the back. They're not that kind of character.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
I love
I
it.
love it.
It's great. I also, as a child, didn't fully understand what being knocked out was. So
Oh.
when Wesley says the equivalent of like, "No, it's all right. I'm not going to kill you," and then
Mhm.
does, like to my childhood eyes is like, what
I
was
would
that?
know
What
sooner.
was
I think he
destroy a
says
stained glass window
destroy
as to destroy an artist as
window.
yourself, but says I can't have
Yeah.
you following me. Like, yeah, and then just boom. It's like but what? So it was a surprise when I was a kid and Inigo shows up again. It's like, well, I thought he was dead.
Uh,
So yeah,
no, I followed
that's
that. Okay.
yeah. It took me a while to keep up with the Battle of Wits as well. Again, not because I'm stupid,
Mhm.
but like because like with sometimes lines of dialogue, I just don't hear what they said as a kid, and so
Mhm.
I didn't know
It's
what
rapid fire.
immunity meant. When you're 5 years
Mhm.
old, so that was wild when I was finally old enough to understand that because the Battle of Wits scene is such a classic.
I'm also a fan of the concept of that scene being not even exactly what he says. I'd
Mm-hmm.
be fine if it is, like, take it at face value. But I love the idea that the
I think I know
poison
where
is
you're
actually
going.
dangerous when inhaled.
Yes, I love that theory. I did think of that a couple of years ago. I
Mhm.
saw it on the internet as well. I love it. The only thing that hurts that is Humperdinck inhales the vial when he's
Mm,
investigating it. What I like to think though to keep up with that is that it's just empty now, so it doesn't matter if
mhm,
he inhales it. I love because
mhm.
like I was watching that and then the line from Batman Begins went through my head where it's like, why hasn't this poison affected us if it's in the water? It's like must be a compound that has to be absorbed through the lungs. I was like, that's what he did. That's what that motherfucker did. He was poisoned the whole time, and he had to keep him talking for the time to. It's brilliant. Like, headcanon, I want that. I want that because I think it makes more sense than him building up an immunity to a hardcore poison over the course of a couple of years.
If it kills somebody in a matter of seconds, there's no way that you can build up an immunity to it,
That's
right?
a lot. That's a lot, man. I really I do because I think that does I think that helps the scene narratively too because the rest of the scene is already indicating how Vicini is not that smart. We kind of get that as time goes on, but to be handed a vial of something, told to inhale, and he just does, that's already indicating that you're not that smart. And see, for me,
well, also, oh, go ahead.
well, I was just like, I thought as well, like when Humperdinck inhales it and says, "Iocane, I bet my life on it." I thought that was trying to indicate as well that Humperdinck is not that smart because Humperdinck has orchestrated this whole thing, but he wouldn't know about the Iocane because it came from Wesley. But if it's odorless and tasteless and there's nothing there, there's no way for him to know whether it is or isn't. So I think that scene is actually supposed to indicate that Humperdinck is smart. But I don't think there's enough there to actually do that. But again, not that kind of movie. The scene with Vicini.
A note on that, actually, Humperdinck in the book is actually like canonically the best tracker that exists in the world.
Fair. Okay, so he is a smart guy.
Yeah, he's maybe not what you would call classically book smart. Like he wouldn't hold a candle to a philosopher, but he can track anything with any amount of crazy fantasy book accuracy that you would like. He can do that.
He can track a falcon on a cloudy day. I don't know what the quality of the sky has to do with tracking a thing that flies. I would almost wonder if the clouds would help, but okay, Buttercup, whatever. Anyway, I agree with you with the point of the Iocane and the inhaling. I wish that was the case because I think it is more fun.
Well, and what I love about that is the reason Vicini fails the challenge is because he accepts the premise that he is given. He accepts the premise that there's poison in only one cup, and that to drink the right cup is to survive the encounter. The intelligent man would have questioned that premise, or potentially the more cynical brain, right? Would have questioned that premise. He's like, the person who's trying to kill me has given me a couple of conditions. Who am I to believe those conditions? He is trying to kill me, right? And then what I like about the inhaling theory is that it also challenges us as an audience, again, on accepting the premise that is provided by Wesley. Wesley first provides to Vicini that there's poison in only one cup. He then says to Buttercup that there's poison in both cups. But what if neither of those statements is true?
Right. I like that. I like it a lot. And then moving forward, the conversation between well, I guess should we start at the beginning if we're going to kind of move through the movie about things we like and dislike, or
I mean, I suppose we could.
It won't take that long because again, we're just talking about positives, and then I want to talk about the nitpicks because I think they are worth talking about. This opening premise of a guy reading to his grandson, I think that's sweet. I think that's kind of cute. I enjoyed that.
I think it's kind of what makes the film.
It adds to the validity of the suspension of disbelief when this is like the perception of the boy's like head. Like, this is what he is picturing. That concept as well, actually, I heard for a good reason why if you were to do a reboot and like recast everyone as like a different ethnicity, like it would make perfect sense if it's being imagined from a kid's perspective. I'm not saying go reboot Princess Bride. I don't know, it's this in this day and age, the reboots and all that. I'm just saying if you were to do it, I don't hate that explanation. I think that could be fun.
There are two directions I would not immediately recoil on with a remake for Princess Bride. The first one is kind of like you said, it's the kid now reading to one of his grandchildren, maybe multiple grandchildren. It actually would be kind of fun to see the story through the perspective of like maybe a female like granddaughter,
exactly.
or you could even do like a granddaughter and a grandson, and they have like competing interpretations throughout the film, so you kind of like really get into the interpretation part. That could be fun. You wouldn't want to mess with some of the fun stuff, but you would want to find a way to match energies without being exactly the same, like focus on different parts of the story maybe. And then the second interpretation that I would not immediately recoil on, and I had to think about this one, but I'm actually for it, a Muppets version of the story.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
it would be great.
Yes. Yes.
It would be amazing.
Yes. Yes. Fully on board. Fully on board.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But if it's anything other than those interpretations, I'm not here for it. I don't want it.
Yeah.
Don't touch it.
Yeah, I like both. The one though, where the new kids interpretation, I have like a couple of like acceptable branches to that. Like if you were to do Princess Bride and you did it, and the whole cast was black this time around, and I know everyone would complain, but if it was like now the kid grandson, because I think I saw a TikTok where someone laid out this plot like where he works, he has a coworker, and her kid is sick, and he's like, you know what? This always did the trick for me when I was sick. I'm gonna give you this book that my grandfather used to read to me. And this family is black, so this little kid imagines what all these people would look like in their world. Like again, that's not hurting the existing Princess Bride. It's a fun retelling. We get to play with some actors that maybe we know of in this fun environment. Like it could be cool. It could be cool. I'm not saying that's the way to do it. I'm just saying I'd be open to it. I would not be upset about that. Anyway, I think the opening is fun. I think it's sweet. The next part of the opening, I think, is probably one of the dumbest parts of it, where it's just Buttercup was raised in this farm. Was she? Because all we see are her and Wesley. It looks like she's living on this farm by herself. Anyway,
they did not bother to cast her any parents.
No, not at all. And then this whole love story is easily the most shallow in the whole world of fantasy stories. But I don't care because it's fun and it's sweet. And then he goes to get his fortune. Cool, sweet. And then she's sad. Okay, fine. Now, when Humperdinck picks his bride, does that automatically make her a princess? Because that's I was always a little confused by that. Because
well, this is actually one of the rare instances where I do not necessarily recommend reading the book, but I have read the book. And no, it did not automatically make her a princess. They had to go through levels of giving her nobility, essentially, in order to make her eligible to be his bride. But his whole goal was that he wanted the most beautiful woman in all the world, and he decided that it was Buttercup. And it's actually very interesting because Buttercup, like, they talk about how beautiful she is with like Wesley and everything. She's gorgeous. She's, classic princess stereotype in the sense that there's just no flaws. But then Wesley dies and she becomes hardcore depressed, but her depression actually kind of like makes her more beautiful in a weird way. Like it, rather than being sort of like our modern depiction of depression, it just makes her cold and distant. And
was this story written by a man?
Like, yes.
Yeah.
But it basically because she's no longer like emotionally available, I guess. It seems to like accent her beauty, her cold heart,
because she's hard to get.
Contrasts with her beauty, essentially. And so in their negotiations, she straight up tells Prince Humperdinck, I will never be in love with you. I don't really want to get married. I guess I will marry you if you're going to make my life terrible without it. So whatever, that's fine. And they have to go through like a months of like giving her nobility. And then eventually she like moves into the castle.
Ugh, men.
But like she's a depressed character. Like the movie kind of gets this point across, but Buttercup is not a happy camper. She's not one of those like princesses. It's like I can just sit here and wait and it's fine.
Right.
She's
devastated.
Yeah,
her
and
world is rocked
through most of the story.
Yes. Yeah, so that's all good and fine, though, I guess, in the end. The Vicini, we talked about that a little bit. All of that is great. The boat, being out there, getting to the Cliffs of Insanity. The rope is fun. The sword fight, phenomenal. The fight with Fezzik, I think, is great. It's really, really cute. The only time Wesley is actually scared, I think, in the whole movie, honestly, is going up against the Giant, which is kind of hardcore. I can barely understand Andre the Giant throughout the entire movie, but he is he's easily, I think, the heart of the film. Say what you want about Inigo and Buttercup and Wesley. I think Fezzik is the heart of this movie. He is such a great, wonderful guy.
Okay, I don't know. I don't really agree or disagree. Like, I wouldn't argue the fact that Fezzik is definitely a part of the heart of the film. He is the one that brings the team back together at the end. He's kind of like a gentle giant, except for he's not always gentle. And so, like, I do see that in his character. I don't know. I don't know. For me, at least, the character that best represents all the stuff in the film that ties everything together the best is Inigo. I think Inigo Montoya connects all the threads the most in this film, is thematically the most representative of this film. And I also really love him, so that may be some bias
I don't
talking.
blame you one bit. I totally see that, but I just think Fezzik is the character that makes this movie work. You take him out and nothing works. The bad guys can't get over the cliffs. When it comes to Wesley and Inigo, Wesley beats Inigo, but it's Fezzik's desire to not immediately kill Wesley that allows that story to keep moving forward. Because when he throws
You could say the same thing about Inigo.
Well, a little bit, but I feel like they're not in the same situation. I feel like with Fezzik and Inigo and Wesley were in a different place, whereas I think they're more on equal footing.
Match,
and
in a fair match, Wesley should not have any chance against Fezzik.
Yes,
kind of
yeah, and they talk about how Fezzik, it's more Wesley kind of outsmarts Fezzik in the end, and it's a very believable way is how you would beat him, even in a wrestling situation. But Fezzik, it's just the fact that he could have destroyed him in a second. They're not on equal footing at all, and it's Fezzik's decision that allows the story to move forward. Sure, you could say the same thing about Inigo, but then in the end, Fezzik is the one who resuscitates Inigo. Inigo is on a bender, who's only healed and taken care of because of Fezzik. Inigo can only get to the count because of Fezzik. They only get into the gate because of Fezzik. He's the one. He's the guy that keeps this whole thing moving forward. Because in the end, Inigo is going through stuff, Wesley is going through stuff, and here's this giant teddy bear who's just keeping this story moving, man. It's him. It's him in the end. I love him. I love him. And he's also
maybe a part of the magic as well is the movie really allows for both really crazy solutions that are also incredibly simple. One of the characters we need to save Buttercup is dead. So we take him to a miracle worker and they give him a chocolate pill and he comes to life. They're trying to storm the gates and it's impossible. I mean, they just can't think of any way to do it. Unless they had a wheelbarrow and a Holocaust.
Yeah.
Which they have.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider in the movie he gets it from Mad Max's hut, and I think that's fun, the cloak that is. But in the book it's actually given out to the Brute Squad, and I kind of like the angle that Humperdinck indirectly provides both resources. It's the albino with a wheelbarrow and the Brute Squad with a Holocaust cook, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. We talked about that a little bit. We could talk about the characters forever because Inigo is definitely fantastic. I think Wesley, Inigo. What?
Do you have a favorite?
I think Inigo and Wesley are my favorites. The Dread Pirate Roberts is so fun. It's he's got that Bugs Bunny energy where nothing phases him, but it's because he's got the skills. Except for when he's pretending to be the Dread Pirate Roberts with Buttercup, he's such a dick, which seems so weirdly unnecessary because
I agree. That scene feels a little off.
It's a little much because he doesn't get I don't know what the fall down the hill changes. Exactly. You know what I mean? And I don't I don't know why that changes why you're so aggressive towards her. Even if you think that she's left you and you're mad and you're pissed, so pissed, why are you here then, dude? It's it's because he loves her. Then why are you being such an ass? Come on now. She's laying it out pretty thick that she's not into this guy.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the moment he finds out that she doesn't love the prince. Right. He has been away for forever. And I'm going to go ahead and assume he's been trying, maybe in small steps, to make it back to her since he became the Dread Pirate Roberts. Um, and then he finds out that Buttercup, his Buttercup, is going to be wed to the prince. And the prince is like making that a PR move. He wants everybody to know he's getting married so that when she dies on their wedding night, he can have an excuse to start a war.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so he shows up, and his move is essentially he's coming in as the bitter ex. He's like, we said we were going to get married. You said you were going to wait for me. What is going on? And she's coming in like, I have been kidnapped. I have been
Mm-hmm.
dragged around this countryside. The guys I don't know with no, volition of my own. I got no control in this situation. And then the only part of her life that she loves, Wesley, starts becoming attacked by this guy in front of her, because he's like, you never loved him.
Mm-hmm.
You have no character. It was no love at all. If you can just go ahead and get married to this other guy. And then she's like, well, I'm not in love with him. And he's like, that's kind of even worse because then you're just getting married when there's no love at all and you're totally abandoning
Interesting.
love.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, so like to me, the dynamic in that scene is supposed to be he's confronting her and she doesn't know why he's confronting her, and she lays it all out for him. She's like, the only person I've ever loved is Wesley, but he's dead, so there's no hope for me to have any happiness in this world anymore. And he kind of comes to understand that about the same time that she's had enough and pushes him down the hill. And then so he lets her in on the secret, and she's like, oh my gosh, the world has changed. I can be happy now. And she throws herself down with him. The problem is the energy in the scene is not, it's not great. He's a little too
The
aggressive.
motivations are still strange though, because as soon as Vicini is dead, what's the point of the anonymous thing? Just confront her then, like take the mask off, like just talk. What's the point?
There's a good chance that she would, like, if it was a situation he's imagining where she never really loved him to begin with, there's a chance that she would be more honest with a stranger than with Wesley. Because Wesley was under the impression that she loved him. So either she was really good at deceiving Wesley, or she just like was in love and it wasn't as strong as a love as he thought it was. I don't really
I
know.
guess I feel like it's more for the movie's punch than it is the
Sure.
narrative. I think you're giving it a lot of good, fair, intelligent slack, but I think it's slack nonetheless. Like
I
it's
think it would have been too early for him and too simple really for the story for him to just take his mask off and be like, I've returned for you, and for her to be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's the textbook fairy tale story.
yeah,
That's not quite the story this movie is telling. This movie is focusing on the anger bits and the ugly bits every now and then. It has to
sure.
allow Buttercup to express that, and it hasn't really
I
yet in the
suppose.
film.
It just makes me wonder what Wesley's goal was in the end with the whole
I agree.
thing.
He comes in too hot in that conversation for it to be as honest as I want it to be,
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, Fire
Mhm.
Swamp. I think the Fire Swamp was fun. The ROUSs I think are always a good gag. They're pretty creepy, but they're also ridiculous. The
Mhm.
gag of
Like,
like,
I love,
I don't think they exist, and then it comes out of nowhere. That's always perfect. That's so
like, he's
so
already,
good.
like, locked eyes with a couple of them, but he's, like, straight up lying to her so she doesn't panic, and then
Yeah.
immediately gets attacked.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't think they exist. My
yeah.
least favorite terror of the fire swamp is the lightning sand. When they come out of the sand, it's just covered in it. It's in their mouths and their ears. Like, I hate that. Give me the
I was,
rats any day of the
yeah.
week. I don't want to be dealing with that.
This go around, I was actually rather impressed with like the makeup people or possibly the actors who were just submerging their faces in a bunch of sand and letting it really be what it would have been. But like
Mm-hmm.
they have sand in their noses
Everything.
and like
I
in
don't like
rough,
sand, Mac. It's
it's
coarse
everywhere.
and rough, and it gets everywhere. So yeah, no, pass for me. Thank you.
Mhm,
I do like how
mhm,
nonchalant they do get with the flame spurts, though. Where like it's just the sound. He just picks her
mm.
up and moves. They don't even look at it. Like the laid back charisma of this movie
Yeah.
is chef's kiss. It's very fun.
It is very nice to have like high competency characters and then like let the movie really enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
Um like sure, if you actually know sword fighting, the fight between the two, Inigo and Wesley, it's funny. It's a little goofy. It's a little wild. But
Sure.
it's also like kind of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are intentionally playing around with form and style to
Yeah.
see the skill of the other individual. So like it's enjoying the moment
Mm-hmm.
and telling a story at the same time. It's elevating the characters really
I
well.
don't think fencing has ever been cooler because fencing is
Yeah.
that kind of weaponry and duel where I think fencing is more of an art than it is an
Mhm.
actual because like there's a couple of movies in which it's like it's fencing and they're fighting and all that and I'm like really is this the thing you chose this flimsy little blade like and then there's other
Yeah.
ones where it is much more just like an art form to the point where it's clearly that, but the scene is using it as something heavy, kind of like the Wednesday battle. I'm like, this is
Sure.
just this.
Mhm.
I don't think this warrants this. So I think
Right.
fencing fits into this perfectly. They're mentioning all these fancy guys where these moves come from, and they're
Mhm.
doing the footwork and they're like the swooshing, like it's perfect. Fencing fits into
Mhm.
this perfect. And I'm not bashing fencing. I like fencing. Fencing is pretty dope. I wish I would have learned it, but it's like, especially in this day and age, you're not gonna have a fencing duel, and that's gonna be the cool duel. Like, you gotta have fun with the environment and the
Mhm.
character. Like, the characters are gonna be the thing that carries that. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, okay, so the issue inherently with a sword fight is that actual sword fights don't look that cool. It's very much about having a sharp stick that you're trying to poke into the body of the other person at whatever cost, and it's heavy, and you're just gonna stand there and do your best to stab that person
Mm-hmm.
or slash them before
Right.
they stab or slash you. Um, and that doesn't make for great cinematography. So when it comes to choreographing sword fights in movies like this, um, it almost always works better when there's a level of play involved in the
Absolutely.
characters moving.
Yes.
When you have those crazy, like if the motivations and the tone of the fight between the two of them was like they're genuinely angry at each other and they're trying to kill each other, then of course all that swordplay looks fancy, silly, and ridiculous because it would communicate the anger better if they were just trying to stab each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but because they're having fun and playing with it, it really allows you to go crazy fun with the choreography and for it to all kind of fit within that suspension of disbelief bubble that you've created. Like, sure, they're actually fighting, but they're having a good time with it. They're allowing for those bigger, fancier moves because it's fun to see the other person
Mm-hmm.
have that skill. The other fight scene that I can think of that compares to this is the one in Zorro,
Ah.
between the two, like Zorro and oh, is it Isabella? Maybe
I don't know.
I've
I've not
forgotten
seen
her
them.
name. Um, but they have this fight where she's the governor's daughter and Zorro's fighting the governor, and they have this fight where he's about to steal a horse to make his getaway, and she's like kind of like the last stand. But they've already kind of shown interest in each other in his like other version, and
Mm.
they've also already danced together
Oh.
earlier in the film. So there's several moments where they are kind of like playing with each other while they're also having an intentional fight. So like it's I think it only really works when there's a level of play involved and this is a perfect film for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yes.
perfect film. The whole thing is a level of play. They're like the whole thing is about the characters in this ridiculous situation having fun. He's telling a story to make his grandson feel better. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's perfect.
Yes. That being said, the count is, I think, strangely dark for the rest of the tone
Agreed.
of this movie.
Very sadistic.
It is bizarrely dark. And like they still play with them where he's like, get your rest. If you don't have your health, you haven't got anything. Like there's
Mhm.
funny moments, but he's a sadistic bastard. And
Oh, yeah.
it's a little I don't want to say it's much cuz it fits in fine. But he's like the real monster of this movie, and
Agreed.
it's a little. It's almost a little much when you really pay attention. It's almost a little
Mhm.
much. Um, but in general,
Also, the only fight that they really like, the only fight that gets arguably gory is the one between
yes,
and Inigo.
yes,
Yeah.
like he bleeds so much.
Mhm.
Um, but let's see here. You mentioned the Miracle Max. I love the whole Miracle Max sequence. I think it's funny. It does have the only joke I don't love, which is the MLT, the
I
mutton,
knew
lettuce, and
you were
tomato.
gonna point
Look,
that one out.
I know it's funny. Billy Crystal's killing it, okay? But it's like it's the only one that really takes me out of the movie for a second. And the movie is really good about its weird suspension of disbelief and what is and isn't like normal. But that's like the
Mhm.
most.
See, what's
It's the
weird to
'80s like
me
joke.
is, like, he changed the bacon bit, but he didn't change the tomato bit, and the tomato bit would actually be more impossible in this hypothetical time than the bacon.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't hate it. I'm just saying it's the only joke that kind of takes me out
Mhm,
of it. Um,
mhm.
but that's still great. I love him and
Apparently, they have, like, almost 20 hours of footage of that
oh,
scene, and it's almost different every time.
I'm sure they do. I'm
When
sure.
and this is just me maybe, like, projecting or interpreting the way I want a little bit, but when, Inigo or Mandy Patinkin says the first few lines that he has in that scene where he's, like, giving the background, there's a part of me that's looking at him and he's like, "He's trying really hard not to break right now." Like,
Oh,
sure, he's
I bet.
performing, but, like, 50% of his energy is going to making sure that he's not breaking out in a smile and laughter
I
right now.
believe it. I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah.
Classic.
Ah,
Let's see. The wedding is fun. The breaking in is fun. The
mhm.
fight is fun. I love when Fezzik jogs the albinos
Yeah.
and he just knocks
Didn't
him
mean
the
to
fuck
knock him
out.
so
I
hard.
didn't mean to jog him so
Okay,
hard.
okay, I don't know if he was knocked out.
Oh no, he's
I think
probably
they
dead.
play
I
it
think they killed
as
him.
he's
Yeah, no,
knocked out.
he's dead.
I think he's dead.
No, I think he's dead, but it's still really
We
funny.
never see him again, and we
No, we
don't see
don't.
his body.
No, he's dead.
He's just
He's dead.
yeah.
And then of course to the pain. Ugh,
Oh,
so great.
a great bluff.
So great.
Fantastic.
Oh, wonderful.
'Cause,
Dark
like, it
and
makes you wanna
crazy.
see the fight, and
Mm-hmm.
then and no, he was just lying.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love the ending. It's very beautiful. I kind of want to wrap up though, just because I want to get to the nitpicks, and I don't want the nitpicks to be scattered throughout this good stuff. So, do you have anything else
Alright.
specifically you'd like to get into?
Hmm. No, I guess not specifics. There, just thinking about it all as a whole, we've talked a lot about the stuff that I like and that I notice. I think it's, I don't know, the whole thing is
It's great.
it's great. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's great.
even thinking about Humperdinck's parents, they
Yeah,
only have, like, bit roles, and
and they're
yet,
funny.
like, so memorable.
Yeah,
Everything is memorable.
costumes are beautiful. The music is very pretty. Like all of it,
Oh,
it's great. It's
dude,
just great.
dude.
Tis a
Well,
whale.
actually, that's something we should talk about. The costumes tell the story between Count Rogan and Prince Humperdinck so well because, like,
Mm.
we see Humperdinck and he is like he's got some jewels. He's not like fully decked out, but he's got jewels. He's got ruffled collars. He's got puffy sleeves. He's got a circle skirt for like the first half of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's dressed in the way that you would expect the princess to be dressed. And then Count Rugen is there, and he's not quite the same level, right? But he's another nobleman, and he's in bright colors, but usually slightly more dull, or they're just some more subdued. He is wearing like a you know a tunic sort of situation, but it's very clearly like masculine garb. It's just he plays a much more subdued character, and yet the two of them come across like high school teenage girl best friends.
Do you
Like
think they're supposed to be gay lovers?
I that's never how I interpreted it, but it could be there.
You think
Like
maybe that's it? That's interesting.
I think both of them are just too self-absorbed to
Uh,
really genuinely be interested in a relationship with another person, but that could work.
Interesting.
Two
Very
of
interesting.
them.
I do like their costumes quite a bit, so I agree with you.
Mhm.
And of course, it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Buttercup's red dress and Wesley's black pirate outfit. It's all great.
Oh yeah.
Vicini's coat as well is just very detailed. It's
Mm-hmm.
great stuff all around.
Mm-hmm.
The king's crown kicks ass. Like, it's so big.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
There's a pink dress that Buttercup is in for like 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I love that dress.
Mm.
Like someone, and it's not just like a simple gown. Like they put her in some pretty simple stuff throughout the film, but like it's like designed. It's got like false cap sleeves with beads hanging down from it and
Nice.
like a tiered neckline. Like someone in the costume department just went ham
They're
with
earning their
these
paycheck.
costumes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good stuff. 'Tis a whale. A beautiful whale.
Absolutely.
No real issues. Now,
What are the
nitpicks.
pimples?
Yeah. When the hilarious scene of Inigo looking over his shoulder and just so happens to see someone is there. How the fuck
Mhm.
did Wesley know what was happening? How did he know where to find them and where to go? And if you want to say,
True
well,
love.
it's because shut up. It's because Humperdinck was talking about Buttercup and the marriage and all that. Okay, fine. If you do the math on what he says in the Fire Swamp, he's been the Dread Pirate Roberts for a year, if not a little bit
Mhm.
longer. I'm calling a little
Mhm.
bit of bullshit just on this weird omnipotence that Wesley seems to have and where to go and all
Sure.
that. Because he also says that the Dread Pirate, the Robert ship Revenge, is docked on the far end of wherever they went. So not only did he know where to go, he knew where they were going and knew
Mhm.
where to wait. Like, okay, like a nitpick, but still, my God, come on. Inigo's story of Count Rugen and his father, beautiful, building rapport between him and the at the time Dread Pirate Roberts. Why didn't Rugen take the sword?
This is in the book.
Because the way he tells
He
it, he comes for the sword,
Mhm.
says he's not going to pay what he's supposed to pay, kills his dad, fights the kid, leaves. Why wouldn't you take the sword?
Yeah, he's an asshole. Count Rugen shows up, and it's gonna be a second to remember all this. In the book, arguably that's not shown in the film, so that could be a weakness of the film. But he shows up. He asks Inigo's dad to make him the best sword ever. And his dad's like, "Yeah, sure. Here's what it'll cost. It's not even, it wasn't even exorbitant. It was just like that's the cost of the sword." He's like, "All right, cool." They basically sign a contract. He spends a year making the sword. It is the best sword in Princess Bride fashion, fantasy fashion. It is the best sword to have ever been made.
Mm-hmm.
And when the count comes back to take it, he refuses payment completely. He's not going to pay a penny. And so they fight. And he kills, like, he not only does he say, "I'm not going to pay," when the father insists, he picks up the sword and runs him through with it. And then Inigo has the fight with him. And he ends up beating Inigo. And then he leaves the sword saying some line of like, "I don't even want it now because it's got commoner blood on it," and walks away.
Oh, gross. Okay. I think something, maybe not, I don't know about that. Something could have been put into the movie about that just a little bit. Buttercup, a poor boy, poor and perfect, with eyes like sea after a storm. Oh, like the guy sitting across from you whose mask does not cover his eyes? Come on, Buttercup.
Do you think that she was staring into the eyes of her captor
They
when
have
she was
multiple interactions where she's looking right into his eyes, okay? It wasn't just me that pointed it out. It was partner while we were watching it. It was like, oh, like the eyes that are right across from you, Buttercup? Must not be that pretty, because you didn't notice them. Nitpicks.
What's he gone for?
5 years.
I think that's enough.
I think it'd be funnier if it was like with eyes like a sea after a storm. He's like, my eyes are brown. So what kind of sea are you describing? Because that's rough. Anyway, nitpicks. For a while there, I think it's fine. Like everything kind of works out just fine. But then from Fezzik finding Inigo, so many nitpicks. The characters from like that point on rely on so many assumptions that it's a little bit ridiculous. For one, the grandfather reading the narration is as Fezzik is like bringing Inigo, nursing him back to health. He tells him about Count Rugen and all that. It's like, how the fuck did he learn about that? Why does Fezzik now know about that? Like, where is that coming from?
Well, the Brute Squad was hired and run by Count Rugen.
No, it wasn't. It was the other guy. I don't even know his name.
Well, yeah.
Count Rugen wasn't involved with that at all.
In the books, it's the Count.
Oh, okay, fine. All I'm saying is, like, in the movie, that seems to come out of nowhere. That he just knows that now.
I mean, he's working for the kingdom, and might be common knowledge that Count Rugen has 6 fingers.
They were all in the kingdom already, though. They're clearly operating within like once they get back to Florin, it's like a 10 square mile radius because they're traveling all these places to less than 15 minutes. So
it's in the Thieves' Forest, so it's not like they didn't start in the country or in the kingdom.
And then so this is funny because this is a bigger nitpick, I think. Fezzik's like, the castle gate is guarded by 30 men. It's like, how many do you think you could take on? 10. And then he counts on his fingers for like 5 seconds. That would leave 20 for me. It's like, wow, Inigo, wow. And that's not a nitpick. That connects to later in the movie when Fezzik is describing how he found these 4 white horses, and I thought there were 4 of us and we might need them later. And Inigo's like, Fezzik, you did something right. I'm like, the fuck are you talking about, man? If anyone's a dumbass in this duo, it's you! Yeah. Fezzik hasn't done a single thing wrong in the entire movie. He is... Vicini indicates that he's a lumbering oaf with no brain. His first lines out of his mouth are, I don't think we should be hurting an innocent girl. I think we should fight fair to fair, the way God intended. I'm gonna heal this guy who's drunk and inebriated. I'm gonna take care of him. And, like... everything he does is heartfelt and intelligent. Like, oh, but Fezzik, you did something right. Inigo, you had to do finger math for 30 minus 10. Dude.
No, I agree. That line has rubbed me wrong because, like, the end is almost perfect in a lot of ways.
It's beautiful.
But that one line, I'm like,
dude.
I mean, he does kind of, like, there's a bit of, like, bumbling to him every now and then, but everything that Fezzik intentionally does pretty much works out for him.
Right.
With the exception of, like, fighting Wesley directly and honestly. And even that does, because Wesley's not the kind to kill him.
Right. So, and that also didn't come from a place of stupidity. That came from a place of empathy. He questioned Vicini's orders. Like, none of this is coming from a lack of intelligence.
Yeah. No, agreed. The only thing I can think of that would maybe classify as a mistake from what he intended to do was when he left Wesley in the suit of armor, and came back and he was just gone. But, like, that's one thing that could have happened to any of the characters.
Yeah. And it's clear he was then wandering around looking for him, and that's how he got to the stables. Like, why are we hating on Fezzik? Because come on now, that's not fair. I love the only, like, real interaction between him and Buttercup is their little smile when he catches her, and I love it's just so sweet. He's such a big teddy bear. But then right after that, this is not a nitpick. I genuinely love the conversation between Inigo and Wesley about him becoming the Dread Pirate Roberts. I just think that's very sweet. The continued rapport. But also, that's badass as hell. Like, my life in revenge is over. What do I do next? Like, a genuine friendship moment. And the guy's like, well, do you want to become the biggest, baddest pirate in the whole fucking world? Because you know what? You do really, really well. Like, it's so cool. It's so cool.
What's funny about this, and it's possible that my memory kind of, like, filled in the gaps, but back when I was, like, first becoming aware of the actual plot of this movie, because I'd seen it several times. We talked about that. I've seen it several times without really understanding it. But we got to, like, the end fight, and I was kind of sitting there thinking, I was like, Wesley has a whole crew of pirates that he's supposed to go back to, but I know he doesn't go back to them at the end of the movie. Who takes over that ship?
I never even thought about that. Like, he was gone for almost a month.
Yeah. And so, like, it was that scene where I think Inigo starts taking on Count Rugen, and I went, Inigo doesn't have anything to do anymore. he would make a good pirate. And then they have that conversation in the window, and I went, I'm a genius.
Yeah,
I predicted the story.
That's pretty good.
Because like they actually, like, full points to Mandy Patinkin's performance. He kills the Count, and you have that glorious moment of like retribution, and then he very clearly sort of like drops. There's nothing.
Yeah, the mission is gone.
Really know what to do now, and he does return to his friends, but sort of like there's a moment where it's not just triumphant. You see him sort of go, I did it. What now?
Yeah.
And I guess piracy is what now. So.
Hell yeah. Right on, man. I dig it. And then right before that, small nitpick. Buttercup, tying up Humperdinck. Right on. Wesley, cool. And then our team is coming back together, and Inigo runs in. With a sword covered in blood. The last time Buttercup saw this man, he was kidnapping her, and she doesn't give a shit. Again, the collective like consciousness, like the whole third act, the characters seem to like subconsciously become aware that they're storybook characters because they're all just aware of who's on what side out of nowhere. This I'm curious about what you'll think of this one. Nitpick. Wesley, 50 years being sucked out of him by the torture machine. The wail that just echoes through the kingdom, haunting and terrible. And Inigo immediately knows it's him because his true love is marrying tonight. So who has the reason for ultimate suffering? First of all, how do you know that's Wesley? Well, because his true love is marrying tonight. How the fuck does he know that the man in black and Buttercup are in love?
Yeah, that wouldn't be common knowledge. I have thought about that before.
What? Inigo, what? Huh? Alright, fine. Whatever.
No, I think you can excuse the part about, like, it's the cry of ultimate suffering, and only someone who is losing their true love would give such a cry. You can kind of use that and wave that with, like, the whole, like, because there was one perfect sword, or, you know, this is the fantasy world, and true love brings people back from the dead, kind of, right? Like, you can kind of put it in that genre, but then, like, him knowing that the man in black was in love with the princess, and the princess is getting married, he wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, but
there's
it's also
nothing in the story.
Him saying that that's the sound of true suffering. The man in black, his love is marrying tonight, so who else has a reason for ultimate suffering? That's not why he's screaming! He's wrong, just across the board. Like, Inigo is kind of an idiot, which I never really thought about. Like, he's wonderful, and I love him, and he's clearly not a moron. But he's kind of an idiot!
My sister and I were joking in the scene where, like, he's praying to his dad. He's like, you know, please help me find this man so I can avenge you. And it goes all like golden and everything. I was like, maybe he's just like a really bad paladin who forgets he's a paladin class.
maybe that could
because
track.
There's supposed to be like divine intervention in
just
that moment.
Maybe a low intelligence stat kind of thing.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly. Where like he like kind of gets a lot of influence from the outside, and he just rolls with it. He's not bothered by the fact that he just knows things at all, or the fact that he randomly stabbed a tree and door opened. You know, that's just normal for him.
It's just his thing. It's fine. It's also, you know, maybe it wasn't subconsciously he picked the tree, the only one that clearly has a door in it. But no, I'm all for with the ghost father being the thing. Last nitpick. Last one. This is truly, most of these I thought of while watching it tonight while being critical. This one has bothered me my entire life. They're sneaking on that bridge, hiding from the 60 men who are tennis ball chucking distance. No. I don't care about how they got up there. That's fine. They're sneaking around though. But then when they pick up Wesley, they're standing up and clearly visible. And that gave me anxiety as a child. It's like, they see you now. You were hiding. You were so purposely, pointedly, cinematographically hiding, and now you're not, and now you've been seen, and now I'm
Mm-hmm.
anxious because the bad guys are going to see. It doesn't matter. Nitpick.
No,
But still.
I nitpick that whole like how they get up there because that's like a
Uh-huh.
keep wall,
It looks
and that's
like
a
it.
part of the keep.
Right.
Then,
You'd think.
and there would be guards on that.
You'd think.
And then sure, maybe they're not, but they're clearly hiding from the guards that are below. But when they move around, they're not that hidden. They don't really try that hard to stay hidden. So the only explanation that maybe kind of makes sense is that it's a nearby wall that is also kind of a keep but not used anymore. And also that it's not that important that they're not seen because maybe it's normal for people to be on that wall, but they can't be seen spying on the guys. But none of that really makes any sense. They just didn't think about it when they were filming the scene. That's all it is.
Which is fine. It's fine. It's a nitpick. In the end, though, all those nitpicks aside, because I know it's not that kind of movie, but I do think about those, some of those. And some of those could have used a little more explanation. But at the end of the day, I love this movie. I don't know why you'd walk away feeling badly about this movie or like hating this movie. I think it's very sweet.
See maybe not being everybody's cup of tea,
That's
but
fine. That's fine. Yeah.
I think it's a great film. It's
Tis a whale.
so funny. It's satire without actually critiquing the original like fairy tale form. It's so fun.
Yeah.
I think kind of we were mentioning this a little bit before in our conversation earlier, but if we were to do a adaptation of this or you're going to do a new version of Princess Bride, I kind of like the idea of using that, particularly the it's a new generation, right? There's somebody else reading it to, maybe it's the grandson who's grown up and he's reading it to his grandchildren, or he's giving it to some other family. That would be a good opportunity to explore the areas of the story that are left a little bit shallow.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like the Beauty and the Beast reboot with the
And it's
exploring the
implied
plot
that the
holes.
grandpa is skipping around and reading the best parts of the story. So maybe there are things that could be explained more, or parts of the film that we get in this version that you could skip over a little bit in your new version. You just have to balance that really well.
Yeah.
Like you have to really, really get it right, or it'll just not be as good as the original.
Totally fair. But you've not given your verdict though officially, so we can't end it until you do.
Yeah, it's a whale.
Okay, cool. Just checking. Prosperity. Anyway, yes, thanks for listening. We are starting our next big marathon next week. It's not our biggest. I don't think technically. I think Planet of the Apes is still going to be the biggest for a while, but it is our second biggest, I think, technically. And I'm excited to get into it. We're doing Aliens. I'm pumped. We love Aliens. Have we seen all of them though? Like on
No.
Which ones have you not seen?
People are gonna get mad if they hear this part, but I've only seen the prequels.
You haven't seen the classic Alien yet? Okay, perfect. We're starting off strong, everybody. This is going to be a good one. And this also is not one that ends horribly, like Night at the Museum and The Mummy and Terminator. Like, the last one we'll watch will be Romulus, and that one was not.
And by the last Terminator film is not terrible.
Yeah, but the one before that was pretty bad.
That's true.
Still, like it was still a downwards. This one is more of a roller coaster.
Good movie, great movie. Oh no!
Yeah, like that's kind of where it was at. But Alien is like a ooh, ooh. Okay, so like it's good. Anyway, that's it. We're done. That's what we're gonna end on. All right, bye.